morning. I'm Javier Garcia, Director of Asociación Confío from Mexico, and I would like to thank ICFO and Comité de la Charte for this invitation. Mexico is a country with a young population of around 112 million inhabitants. Statistics given by Coneval in 2005 revealed that 37% of Mexicans was living in poverty and 18% in extreme poverty. In terms of wealth concentration, 10% of population with the highest income held 40% of national income. These numbers remained more or less steady for the past decade. In year 2008, the INEGI, our National Census Institute, counted more than 40,000 nonprofit organizations versus 15,000 that were counted in year 2000. Until early 1900s, the development of nonprofit sector in Mexico was similar to other Latin American countries. In particular, the strength and extension of Catholic Church influence during the colonial period led to the creation of numerous charitable service entities, most of them hospitals and schools. As happened in many other Latin American countries, the struggles between the Catholic Church and the new state in Mexico resulted in expropriation of Catholic Church property and the virtual ruin of the existing nonprofit sector. Neither the new government nor the Catholic Church had resources to sustain it. The Mexican Revolution at the start of the 1900s brought the state and the Institutional Revolution Party PRI to the forefront. Much like the Catholic Church in colonial times, the state and the PRI discouraged the formation of new charities. As a result, independent nonprofit organizations played very minor roles in social welfare. The political alternance in year 2000 brought some changes to the funding of the entire civil society as new resources of public and private funds became available, but at this moment, the legal and fiscal framework for civil society organizations, or CSOs, is restrictive and cumbersome. A Johns Hopkins University study from 1995 showed that Mexican nonprofit sector was small in relation to the overall Mexican economy. Furthermore, it placed Mexico as the smallest nonprofit sector in Latin America. The principal source of income of nonprofit organizations in Mexico were fees and charges for the services provided, with a total of 85%. In contrast, private philanthropy and the public sector provided much smaller shares of total revenue. Compared to the global average, the Mexican revenue structure differed in a great manner to elsewhere in the world, in particularly the more developed countries. Nonprofit employment as a share of total employment is also considerably lower than it is in Latin America. Same happens with volunteers. As we will see, since 1995, the year from which estimates were made, the funding situation has changed, but not that much. With the promulgation of the federal law about promotion of civil society organization activities in 2005, it is necessary for organizations to be on a federal registry in order to obtain federal government funds. From that year, the number of organizations in the registry has tripled, but the number of supported organizations remains the same. Between the years 2005 and 2009, the budget of Mexican government for civil society organizations increased from $15 million to $25 million, which means an increase of 64% versus a civil society growth of more than 100%. Organizations receiving these grants did so under co-investment in order to carry out short-time projects. On average, each organization or project received $13,000. In 2009, only 24% of CSO's registry received federal funds, and that was about 6% of the NGO sector. Despite of a change in Mexico's ruling party, which had implemented some changes that benefit CSOs, we found that in practice the federal government doesn't have the capacity and perhaps the interest to support their activities, situation that forces organizations to look for private funding. In this regard, CSO's Mexican tax regulation hasn't improved in last years. For example, lawmakers have enacted new guidelines that decreases the limit of private donations that can be deducted from tax with a maximum of 7%. In this regard, federal government allows formal CSOs with activities defined by the income tax law to be tax exempt and to issue tax deductible donation receipts. These accredited organizations are known as authorized grantees. The process to get this approval is complicated and generally unsuccessful for young organizations. In fact, it can take from months up to a few years. Also, the authorized CSOs have additional administrative costs. Cash and in-kind donations for these authorized grantees in 2008 had the following highlights. 5 organizations received 20% of cash donations, only 5. 5 received 74% of in-kind donations. 60 received 40% of cash donations, and 46 received 93% of in-kind donations. In 2011, 91% of donations received by authorized grantees had a domestic origin. In the same year, authorized grantees from 5 states of Mexico received more than 80% of total donations. Those states have only 30% of Mexico population. A study of 150 donor institutions with tax-exempt status in 2007 showed that they gave 91% of all donations. 150 institutions gave 91% of all donations, about $500 million. And of those, 82% were given to other tax-exempt organizations and almost the rest to public programs. One donor by itself gave 40% of total donations, and 10 donor organizations gave 59% of donations. It is important to say that there is a lack of transparency in some of these organizations. Some of them do not have the practice of publishing financial statements, and the vast majority don't feel they should make them public. Only 49% of these 150 donor organizations reported to have a web page. According to a national philanthropy survey conducted by Layton and Moreno in 2008, Mexicans prefer to give directly to individuals instead of organizations. 60% of the survey respondents expressed a preference to make a donation directly to the needy, and 60% to institutions or organizations. The survey also shows that Mexicans put little trust on NGOs. Same thing happens to Congress, unions, and political parties. About Confío, Asociación Confío. Chihuahua Business Foundation, FECHAC, and Telefónica Foundation Mexico were the founding partners of Confío in year 2010. The academic institution Tec de Monterrey, Campus Chihuahua, is also an important part of Confío, as these institutions have been our principal supporting donors. Our model has been based on Fundación Lealtad from Spain, which is part of our director's board, with an adjustment of their 9 standards of transparency and best practices. Over the last 3 years, we have interacted with almost 900 civil society organizations. Of those, more than 700 had received information about the standards through our diagnosis workshops. This is the previous step for being assessed. And there are a little more than 30 organization reports in our webpage and almost 20 more coming up. We have also been working with local, regional, and national foundations and companies with corporate social responsibility programs to promote the use of Confío in their grant decision process. Now, from these experiences, we know that civil society organizations are interested in participating in Confío's transparency model, but their limited institutional capacities and their lack of incentives in the environment discourage additional efforts to finish the process of being assessed. Some grant makers and corporate foundations are friendly to our model, especially those with simple organizational structures. Others, I have to say, prefer to wait and see the evolution of our new proposal. We know that civil society organizations are being aware of the importance of transparency and self-regulation, but we suspect that they are waiting for a loud and clear signal from donors. Now we understand that they play a very important role in the development of a transparent and accountable sector, and this is why we are introducing new manners of interacting with them, including the development of workshops and conferences. Mexican third sector has a lot of challenges to get over. There is a general lack of awareness about CSO's activities, which are frequently misunderstood as having business or political orientations. Most organizations have a hard time to get volunteers and funds for salaries and other fixed operation expenditures. Today's good news is that there are a lot of good and prepared people and some powerful nonprofit and academic institutions that are trying to change for good our sector, and hopefully will make it. Thank you very much.